Hi everyone, welcome to Raise to Rise podcast, a place where we discuss bite-sized wisdom nuggets with easy-to-follow practices to live a better life. Raise to Rise podcast is supported by Ayurvedic Seva. Ayurvedic Seva is an herbal dietary supplement line set out to change the industry by dedicating the company to quality, safety, and holistic approach on making the wellness journey safe, healthy, and natural. If you want to start adding some natural herbs in your life, then head over to ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. Once again, it's ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. I am your host, Mital Patel, a parenting junkie, Ayurveda enthusiast, and an advocate of conscious living. Hey, welcome to Raise to Rise podcast. Thank you everyone for being with us. Today we have a guest, a fellow coach who is joining us from Canada. Her name is Leanne. She's a mentor, a guide, a teacher, and a coach herself. Through her years of teaching children and teenagers, she realized that it's so important from a young age to encourage children to tap into their potential and not the parents' potential by encouraging them to have a voice. In her experience, especially at the high school level, children are choosing careers that are based on other people's expectations and not their own. More and more today, children are afraid of failure because of the helicopter parenting, who had the best intentions but need to see the true value in failure. And she realized throughout her journey that it's okay for our kids to fail, and failure are important for our kids. And so she believes that when children are not parented to think, years later, they realize that they never liked the career choices they've made and the life path that they have chosen. So since they have never made the decisions in their first place. So that's why her new path is the coaching. So let's welcome Leanne with us and let's hear her wisdom. Let's dig in with some parenting and let's see where our conversation takes, Leanne. So happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mital. I'm thrilled to be here and be a part of this podcast.
Thank you. So looks like you're really passionate about guiding people to choose, what they really want to do in their life in terms of the lifestyle choices and the career choices they make. So again, Leanne is a lifestyle and a career coach. So tell us a little more about, I want to go back to your beliefs and, the practices and the experience that you had. Tell us a little bit more about the helicopter parenting. I have read about it, but I would love to hear your views.
Well, my experience, I spent a lot of time in education. And so obviously everyone's children goes to school. And so I've been on both sides as a teacher and as a parent. And so it's interesting when you're on the teacher side, having the children in front of you and hearing, their loves, their passions, their desires, what they tell you on a daily basis, their hobbies, things like that. And, it's really, really exciting to have that experience with the children. Sometimes what happens, if it's like a parent-teacher interview or something like that, parents will sometimes be like, oh, well, my child's never going to do that, or I don't want them to do that. And so there's this sort of helicoptering, and it can start from a very young age where, children are being discouraged. It could be anything, being discouraged to like art, discouraged, oh, you're not going to play soccer. I want you to play hockey, or, that sort of thing. And so those are the little things that I hear sometimes where, as an educator, I might have said, oh my gosh, they're so talented. They drew this beautiful picture. And it's sort of like a discouraging comment where it's like, oh, no, we'll have none of that. Or, and so it starts very young. And then, by the time they get into high school, where I had seen them, sometimes, then that passion is kind of gone
It
because
just
they've been
dies out.
told, you know, no,
Uh-huh.
no, no, that you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be this, and
Mm.
it's almost like they're so programmed, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's great if that's what you want to do. But now that I'm a career coach and I have clients, I can't
Mm-hmm.
tell you how many people will come to me and be like, you know what, I discovered a year into my job, I can't stand it. I don't even know why I took that at school.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
And it comes back to that pressure because children always want to please their parents.
For
Right?
sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's sort of a difficult situation. So when the parents are kind of helicoptering their every move, their every decision, and not sort of, you know, instead maybe guide the decision or,
Mm.
you know, come from another place of love,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and obviously every parent loves their child and it's always coming from a good place.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
when it becomes overpowering or the parent is kind of like making the decisions constantly, especially as the child gets older, then their
Mm.
voice becomes very limited.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear the point that you're making. It's like we're like the parents are making the decisions for kids every step of their life, and we're not giving them the space to choose, to make a choice, to make the decision for themselves. And that is like really the problem. It's like a root cause of the career choices. That's hence we don't like what we're doing. And that, when you said, like, I want them to be a doctor or lawyer, because for me, I had a pressure personally. I had that my daughter's going to go into the science field. Now, I wanted to be a teacher. And so that was my first thing. I wanted to be a teacher. And my dad's like, oh, we don't go to teacher's route. That's not for us. We only go to the science field. We either be a pharmacist or we become a doctor. And anything that's related to science. That's what we do. We don't go and teach. And I was like, but that's what I like. Because I loved speaking. I loved teaching, and I used to do these stage shows and be the speaker. But that was a thing that used to come from my dad. Like, no, this is. And matter of fact, when I wanted to come to U.S. to do my undergraduates, my dad chose my major, and he said, "You're going for biotechnology." Now I was 17, and I said, "Okay." My dad said, "I'm going for biotechnology." When I came here, when I started my schooling, within that first 3 months, I realized that's not what I really like to do. I don't want to do biotechnology. This is tough. I just don't even understand what this is. So then I pivoted. But the point is that it's when the parents makes the choices for kids, it gets difficult for us to even
Yes.
live through that choices that they make. So I appreciate that you're bringing that
Yes.
point of tell us a little bit more about why do you think parents make these choices and decisions for kids?
The parent who says, you know, to maybe a 2-year-old, you're going to eat your vegetables. You're going to eat them. And then they
Mm.
don't, right? Or they throw them, or they, you know, and maybe, so right away you're taking away that choice. Maybe there's a better way, like, you know, would you like to eat broccoli or carrots? So then they're
Give them
making
the
a choice.
choices. Yes. Yes.
So it's
I
one
love.
or the other. So as a parent, you might know they're not going to pick the broccoli because you already know they don't like it, but you're going to give them another choice. And so for me, I think it starts early. I think it starts early in the parenting where you are empowering them to make a good decision for themselves. So as a
Yes.
parent, you're setting it up. You are setting it up, but it's in a positive way because, like I said before, every parent's intentions are in the right place. But sometimes, you know, life gets in our way. None of us are
For sure.
perfect.
No.
Where you're just like, you're going to sit down and eat your vegetables.
Yep.
But sometimes the child, then you've kind of backed them up into a wall. And then all of a sudden, that's where that conflict starts, right?
Yes.
And so I've had great success, even when my kids were young, where I would give them a choice. And I was amazed at how that really snuffed out the conflict really quick.
Yes.
They
No.
could
I
just
love
choose.
that. Uh-huh. You give them a choice
Yeah.
instead of making the decision for your kids. And this way we're empowering them to make their decisions later in their life, and in the future ahead. I like that. I like that point.
I was just going to say, even when I started doing this when they were really young, my
Mhm.
children, I found too, I was giving them a voice. And so that voice, as they get older,
Mhm.
and they're learning how to speak for themselves, they're learning how to express themselves. And so, you're kind of laying that foundation when they're young.
Mhm.
And then as they get older, then
Mhm.
they're able to speak.
I love
Right.
that you said that you gave them the voice. Can you take us a little on that journey? How do you do that as a parent? I mean, I would love to do that for my kids too.
I just think, like, again, I think it starts when they're young. Like, a lot of
Mhm.
times, when you go up to little kids and their parents are standing right there beside them, and you say to the child, "How are you today?" And the
Mhm.
parent will say, "They're good, they're good."
Oh yes,
But
yes.
I've been guilty of it. I mean, we've all done that, spoken for
Mhm.
our kids. They're good.
Yes,
But
yes.
again, it's that giving them the liberty, even just to say, "I'm good," or nod their head, whatever it might be, that's giving them
Absolutely.
their voice.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so I think it's very, very important to be aware of it. And it really comes from the awareness of the
Mm,
parent, allowing
yes.
them to have their voice. And even though it doesn't seem like a lot, it is a lot, because as they get older, it just transfers into communication skills.
Right, because
And
this is the foundation. This is where it all begins. I love that point that you made. So, as a teacher, you probably have seen a lot of these things then.
absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. While we were having this conversation about how the parents are making decision, something came in my mind that I think it's sometimes I feel like parents make the decision because they don't want to see their kids, failing at something. And so they think that this is, route A is the best choice for my kid because this will prevent him or her from failing. So what are your views? How should, because I know you really believe in that it's okay for our kids to feel, fail. And so how should a parent respond when they see their kids, failing? Any tips that you can share with us?
I mean, I think failure is in disguise for growth.
Mm,
I think sometimes the problem today is, again, with the helicopter parent.
mm,
Our child comes home with a failing grade, and all of a sudden
mhm.
the parent takes it personally.
Oh,
And
yes.
instead of maybe saying, so did you study? Did you prepare? What happened there? And not personalizing it.
Mm,
I think that's one example where, because we are emotionally attached to our children, it
mhm.
seems kind of ironic that sometimes we need to step back and
Yes.
again let them figure it out, instead of, I'm getting a test or whatever. But, the worst case scenario is you failed the test.
Yes.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it stays a failure mark, I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen is, when you get older, you might have to take the course again, but you're going to learn from it. And to me, those are logical consequences.
Ah,
And then again, as you get through life, how many times, like, you've been late for a meeting, you get stuck in the snow, like here in Toronto anyway.
mm-hmm.
You know, I just call them logical consequences, where
Mm-hmm.
we learn,
Mm-hmm.
as we're going through different things. And so I just think it's really important that the word failure, I really think we should just cross it out and look
Mm-hmm.
at it as growth for our
Yeah.
kids. I think it's very, very important for them think, to feel, to know the disappointment. I mean, God forbid our kids feel disappointment. I mean, again, such wonderful growing opportunities for them
Yes. Yes.
to feel disappointment.
I agree with how you made the point that failures are nothing but a growth. One of the things that I learned from from my mentor was one of this, that, failures are nothing but a feedback. It really gives us that, hey, this is when I do, when I do A, B, and C, the result are X, Y, and Z. How can I get, ABC, or, a different result? What do I need to do? So we can just go backward and reverse engineer what needs to be done next time in the future. So I love that point, that failures are nothing but an opportunity, to grow. And we parents really need to understand that and let the kids face the consequences, unless there's a danger involved, then you get involved. Other than that, let the kid deal with, and go through the phase. So
Absolutely.
I really like that point, that
Yeah.
we need
And
to.
obviously it's age dependent too.
Mhm.
Because
Yes,
if we're
for sure,
talking about a 1-year-old versus a 10-year-old, I mean,
for
uh,
sure.
it depends. But I think the big thing is teaching accountability and
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, right? And so if the 10, 12-year-old, 14-year-old saying, yeah, I didn't study for that. Well, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a good mark. What are you going to do next time?
Yeah. So it's like
Realize
it's like be the guide at that
that,
point. Take, like, just detach yourself from that, like taking it personally, and just be there and be their guide
yeah,
and supporter, and not just, like, don't be on their nerves or on their head at that point, and don't shame them
yes,
for what just
exactly.
happened, because
Exactly.
that's what ends up when we take it personally. It's like, why didn't you, why didn't you do this? Or, then we make it about Leanne. Well, for those of you who are listening to us, Leanne made the points about, not taking it seriously. She also mentioned about us parents need to understand that failures are nothing but a growth, and also, let the kids face the consequences unless the danger is involved, and it's also, again, the age appropriate, and bring the accountability. So I love those tips, Leanne. Thank you so much. Now, from this failure, and because now you also mentioned about the accountability, you mentioned about how we need to let our kids go through the consequences. So this actually brings to your values, how you're saying that we need to teach our kids how to think. And so in that respect, could you share some tips on how us parents can, start this at an early age? How can we teach our kids how to think? If you can share some insights on that.
Teaching them how to think, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, just allowing them to have a voice and letting them speak. So even a person, that coming up to your child and saying, how are you? Hi, when they come over to your home or whatever, and maybe not stepping in so
Mm,
quick. And children are very
mm,
honest too. I think sometimes as adults we're afraid. What is it? What if they say something really embarrassing? you
yes.
know,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
and I've been there, and I've been like, oh my gosh, like. But they're children, and sometimes they say honest things, and we have to. If a child says something, we have to let the other person respond accordingly. And again, it's logical consequences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just allowing them to have their voice, and encouraging them to speak. Or even at school, let's say they come home and one day they're like, I don't think my teacher's being very fair or whatever. Instead of maybe getting on the phone right away and calling the teacher, you're encouraging your child. Maybe ask your teacher questions when you go to school the next day,
Mm,
and encouraging that conversation, just like
yeah.
we would have as adults with one
Mhm.
another.
Have them
So,
deal with
you know,
the event, right? Like
yeah.
have
So,
that.
I mean, again, it's age dependent.
Hmm.
It's age dependent, again, depending on the age, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just allowing them to speak and giving them the confidence,
Hmm.
to speak and to be heard, which is really important.
Hmm. While you were saying about when you mentioned again the logical consequences, something hit me, like, so basically, it's all about us being present in the moment, and just just be aware of the awareness, be aware of what's going on. It's not a rocket science. It's just about like taking taking everything moment to moment. That kind of just, because
Absolutely.
right, it just makes so much sense for us parents to be present with our kids and be their support system, and not not the taskmaster or the owner of them, or their choices, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And this is not easy stuff. Like I
No.
remember when my eldest son was really young, he hit the age of 2, 3,
Mm-hmm.
and he got into the temper tantrum stage. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember being in Costco, and
Mm.
after 20 minutes, that was it. He's a very athletic kid, and now I
Yeah.
know why. It's just because he loved to run. But I remember he would start screaming and yelling or
Mm.
whatever, and I'd be standing in the store horrified, thinking, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to
Yeah.
do?" Because we personalize it, right?
We sure do.
And so it really comes back to us and being present, like you said, and
Mm-hmm.
looking at the situation. Like, I have choices too.
Yes. Yes.
Number one, I can tell my child, um, I'd like you to quiet down or whatever. And then if that doesn't work, then I guess we're going to plan B. And it might even mean having to pick the child up and leave the store.
Oh my
Maybe
gosh,
that's
you
all we do in that day,
that is
you know?
that is
So,
so true, that we have the choices. You either try to quiet them
absolutely.
down, and if that doesn't work, then you just say, "Oh, I see it that you're not so happy right now. Do you want me to just pick you
Mhm.
up?" And okay, great. We're just going back home. Seems like I can't take the screaming. My ears are hurting, so let's just go home. That I mean, that's all, because like how you mentioned choices, right? I mean, this is that choice that I we can make: take them up, pick them up and then leave, or we roll our eyes, or we look at, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing, and then it actually raises our blood pressure even more when people look at
Mhm.
you. It's like, oh my gosh, they're looking at me. They must be thinking that I'm such a bad parent, like I don't even know how to control my kid, or they don't even know how to calm my kid. And then we take all these things as so negative, like, oh, and then we shame ourselves at that time also. And so then it makes it even worse. So the better choice is just take your kid and leave. And then
Absolutely.
just, okay,
Yeah.
fine, we'll just go some other day.
Just to tap onto that, I noticed the other day with your new president's inauguration
Mm,
that one of his kids or son, daughter, I'm not sure, I watched
mhm,
them right before the inauguration started. Someone was
mhm,
holding a little baby,
mm,
and they obviously had to leave, whether it
mhm.
was for a diaper change
Right.
or whatever. But here you are in the middle of an inauguration where, hey, you know what? It's kids.
It's
Like,
exactly, it just happens. You
they,
can't, that there are situations, and I really, that brings to that point that I always tell myself that I can only control what's in my around my entity, not something that's outside of me, like not my kids, not the weather. If I can't control that. And
exactly,
if they have an accident, or if they need me, they need me, period. There is
exactly.
nothing. But again, like you mentioned this point earlier, that it's not easy. It takes a lot of
No.
work, it takes a lot of self work, it takes a lot of lifestyle changes. That's where the coaches like you come in, who can guide us to make the right choices in our careers, and again, you make the right choices in the lifestyle, and hopefully that just helps us deal with these difficult challenges that we go through.
Really. And when our children are born, there's not a manual that you can just press play and say, here we go. Like I have 3 children. So when I look at how I parented my first child, and then when I got to my third,
So
it's
different.
like, you know, the things that I took so seriously with my first child,
Mm,
I kind of was like, probably let a lot of stuff go by the time I reached my third, just because I
mm-hmm,
had 3 really, really young children.
mm-hmm.
And you're learning. Like
Yeah.
we're all learning.
We're all learning. That's funny that you mentioned. With my older one,
Mm-hmm.
there were like, not so many difficulties in terms of parenting,
Yeah.
and except the health. And so I thought, oh, this is very easy. And then with my second one, who's born, like, they have a 7-year difference. And so my second one, he's toddler, he's 3-year old right now. And they're so opposite of each other. I never knew what the tantrums are until my second one, until when he was a year and a half, when he like literally had the meltdown in library. And I was like, oh, so this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course, I was more prepared by my second child, because I was already, into the self-help, and I was like learning, and I was keen to learn how to parent, my kids consciously and stuff. But I didn't have this same challenges with my older one.
Right. And I
And
did the opposite. My
oh,
first was like like a rude awakening. It was like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
And then my second was the opposite. It was like, wow, you sleep all the time. It
right.
was a different experience.
Super different. And initially, I mean, I thought like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, the parenting is easy. But then when I had my second child in 2017, I learned, ooh, this can also come with this kind of package too. Never mind. Let's learn how to deal with these things before I even get to that stage. Because he wouldn't sleep at night, and he was just so opposite of it. So I was like, oh, seems like this is coming, ahead in my life. So I better buckle up right now. But it's
Yes.
hard. It's so difficult
It,
when we're in that heat of the moment. It's just,
absolutely. And
it's hard to
also with
remind ourselves.
postpartum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
And with
yeah.
post that, can be difficult. When I had actually with all three of my children, I felt like after I had my kids,
Mm-hmm.
I was like naturally high after I
Mm-hmm.
had them. And then I hit that 6-week mark afterwards where I would just crash.
Drop it.
And so, I mean, there's so much going on between,
For sure.
recovery from having a
Mm-hmm.
baby and then, of course, being sleep deprived sometimes.
Yes. No,
So it's
absolutely.
so important to take care of yourself.
So important. I really, really, 100% agree with that point. It's funny because with my first one, I didn't think how important it is to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
And during my second one, I felt it like, ooh, it's important. I need to take care of myself. But anyways, like, I really want to, I wanted to, it's good that we have like the opposite, experiences. And at the same time, it's like, it just ties up like to that point that our kids don't come with the instructional manual or blueprint. This is all like, and I also believe that our children, teach us what we really need to learn. And so I think I really needed to learn how to be patient. And I needed to learn that how to handle the conflicts, and how to, manage the heat of the moment. So it's still in the process. And again, like, I also want to bring up this, that we don't say these things to shame other parents who are going through these things, but we're sharing these things so that, if you are one of those, then reach out, or, that we're here to help. And again, there's so many outlets nowadays to get help with our kids, or with our, new mom, or during your pregnancy, anything. Like, it's all about asking for that help, and
Absolutely.
learning these tools and strategies to be a better version of yourself. Plus, also, there are so many ways to parent our kids nowadays. There are so many, what is it, like you mentioned about helicopter parenting, but then there are so many other traditional way of parenting. But then, you can make that choice right now, like, do I really want to, parent my kids in a way where it's going to hurt them in the future, or should I shift it to the conscious parenting, or should I shift it to, the connection, or learn more logically, and teach my
Right.
kids what's right, how it can help them in the future run. So I really appreciate, this conversation, because we can just go on and on for it. But
Oh,
before, I really wanted to, also ask you about your current projects, and, how can someone come and work with you, because you really like are there so that if someone who's not feeling up to that level, up to the mark in their career, and they can come to you. So can you share away your projects with us where we can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my clients that I have, they come to me whether they've just had children and they're, contemplating going back to work, or just realizing like having children, I find is very humbling. It's almost like an epiphany for women sometimes, because all of a sudden we're like, oh, I don't even want to go back to the job I was doing or what I was thinking of doing. So I get a lot of people who come to me and they're just like, you know what, I don't know what I want to do. And it's not even necessarily about career. It could just be just a feeling of being stuck and trying to find that vision again. And looking at what you like and then moving that forward with a plan. So I help a lot of people that way. I do help people who have very successful careers, who all of a sudden just want to have an accountability coach like myself that keeps them on track with their many goals. And so there's also that side of things. So really the whole lifestyle career is an assortment of people that I help out. So it's very exciting that way. So I'm doing one-on-one coaching right now. And very shortly I'll be introducing group coaching as well for people who would rather have that outlet as well and be able to share within a group format as well. So I'm very excited about that. I haven't launched that yet, but right now I'm doing one-on-one. And a lot of people prefer that, but the group coaching is very helpful too.
Yes. So thank you, Leanne, for sharing that. So for those of you, who are thinking that, they're stuck, or, who feel that they're stuck in their life or their career or anything, and you're looking for an accountability coach, a lifestyle coach, reach out to Leanne. We're going to share all her details in our show notes. So we'll have her website, her all social media handles. You can just, can they DM you, Leanne? We'll share her emails as well, and so you can just reach out. Can they also DM you and email you? Great. So you guys,
if they go on Instagram, they can. If you go on my website, you can. I believe there's an information.
Yes.
You can fill out a contact form, or even book a free discovery session.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing your gifts with us and sharing your insights with us. It was amazing to learn, the practical examples of what you have seen as a teacher, what you have seen as a parent, and, sharing that with us, your experience. Amazing. Beautiful to have you. Thank you for the incredible insights that you also shared, the tips and everything. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun talking back and forth and just sharing experiences that we all go through.
It's like when you put the two passionate parents in one space, we can just keep on going.
Oh yeah. And I just wanted to add, being a parent is very, very humbling.
Yeah.
And the range of emotions that we all feel, it's all normal, and we just have to stop being so hard on ourselves and breathe, and it'll all be good.
We do what we know, and we can do more when we learn more. So this is just like a journey. There's no final destination. It's just about our journey, and we can just enjoy and have fun.
Exactly. And this is an amazing platform. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. This is, most of the time I say I am doing it for myself because I get to learn a lot in this whole process, because you never know what I needed to hear again for myself. So hence, this is all like just a service that sometimes I say that I'm doing it for myself. So thank you for coming, Leanne. Yes, no, absolutely not alone. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Raise to Rise podcast. We would absolutely love to hear your thoughts about today's episode. Please let me know you have listened to this episode and fill me with your aha moment. Share it on Instagram, tag me with #RaiseToRise or @RaiseToRise, and I would love to share those to my stories and shout you out there. I would also love if you can subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's our brand new podcast launch, and we have some bonus giveaways going on for the top raters and reviewers. Also, I would love to send you my 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. All you gotta do is leave me a review in the iTunes store, take a screenshot, and email it over at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com. Again, take a screenshot of the review and email me at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com, and I will send you the 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. Thank you so much for being the active listener of this podcast. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for raising your consciousness and rising as joyful beings.